This is a video concerning changing spark plugs on a 1998 Toyota Sienna. I think there are similarities between the models, but I'm not going to speak with more expertise than I actually have. I've looked at YouTube videos, and I'm going to assume you've looked at YouTube videos as well. And this is not beginning to end, but I'm going to ask you to consider maybe before you try all the things they say in those beginning to end videos on how to do it the factory way, that you listen to what I have to say. And I'm not an experienced mechanic, but so far I've just found the greatest workaround ever. And it is mentioned in a video online, a gentleman who speaks Spanish. So I don't speak Spanish, so that's how far I was having to dig trying to work around. So shout out to him. But in almost all the videos on how to do this, they'll remove the airbox. Okay. You're unhooking hoses and electrical clips to remove anything I'm about to speak of. So that means you also have to keep track of them and put them back on when you're done. You remove what's called the valve, the throttle body. You've got the intake manifold, which is this whole aluminum assembly right here. To remove that, you're removing multiple bolts. I'm not going to go into the details because there are plenty of videos that tell you exactly how to do this. You're detaching lots of little bolts in here for this assembly. And then finally, in search of the spark plugs, you, according to them, unclip electrical connections. You remove bolts here. You pull the boots out, and a boot looks, you probably know this, a boot looks a little bit like a long tube that goes way down into a cavity. And if you pull that out and look down, sure enough, there's the spark plug at the bottom of the hole. 1, 2, 3, they probably each took me 5 to 10 minutes each. That's how long spark plugs usually take to change. If you've watched the other videos, you'll see that in some cases they say you should plan 4 hours for the whole job, because even though these are all quick, the other 3 are buried behind this intake manifold. So I won't repeat everything I saw. I'm just saying, I'm just letting you know I did watch the same videos you probably did. Everybody remove this deck up here where the windshield wipers go. I never did quite understand that, because it looked to me like after that they subsequently removed everything I just said. So it didn't really seem to save any work. So the video I found from the gentleman who was speaking Spanish and he was also translating a little bit in English, enough to catch what he's saying, that once you do remove the upper deck on the windshield wiper, you'll be left with something that looks, I got it backwards, I told you I wasn't a mechanic. You'll be left with something that looks like this. It's obviously some kind of an air intake. And then down in here, all of a sudden, voila, you've got enough room for someone even with big hands to get in here and reach down and do whatever you need to do with the back 3, or at least the most difficult one, which is the one on the passenger side. The other 2 other videos point out, if you got small hands and you're determined, you can probably reach in there and get the boots out. My problem was I still didn't have enough room to get down in here with a wrench to do much of anything. So I was doing my thing, but I was getting a really sore back. You're still working blind. You got to figure out where the spark plugs are. And by the way, just so you'll know, because you may not be experienced like me, I'm not experienced either. You see the coil here and the electrical connections and the bolt you have to remove before you can pull the boot out and get to the spark plugs. You assume it must surely be the same way in the backside, and it is not. The boots in the backside are no electrical connection at all, at least not the same coil that has to be unclipped and unbolted. It's just a pop in and pop out boot, which is probably the one mercy that the Toyota engineers gave to people like us. So anyway, I was leaning over here, getting a terrible backache the whole time I was trying to lean over this compartment to do anything. Came over and stood by the side, and it was better, but these things started cutting into my arms because I was really having trouble working blind. Well, it turns out there are 3 bolts, 1, 2, 3, And now this can come out. And so by this point, this is the most luxurious amount of space you could ever ask for. You can comfortably reach everything. You still have to fish around. You need to figure out where the boots are. You need to have, where's mine? You'll end up using, that's just one of many. Sorry, this is worth pointing out. Shoot, can't find it. You really won't be able to reach straight in the back, straight down. You'll probably need universal joints. I'm not sure where all of mine are. I apologize. I went out and bought a flexible one where it's actually a cable going in. But the point is, you still have to do some reaching, but now it's at least physically possible to do the reaching, and you didn't have to do all this disassembly. So removing that box there suddenly makes standing on this side of the car and reaching in here and doing what you need to do very, very comfortable compared to leaning over here for 2 or 3 hours while you take half the dang engine apart. And you're getting into electrical, you're disconnecting the throttle cables, all this stuff that, you know, if you're just out here to change the spark plugs and you're just a weekend mechanic like me, or do-it-yourself mechanic really, you're doing all kinds of mechanical stuff you really have no business doing, following the official instructions. Now, we'll address right here at the end. They say there's a great trick where you rock the engine. You put the car in park and you rock the engine back and forth, and somehow it's going to miraculously rock the engine forward, and you're going to hit the parking brake, and it'll be rocked enough forward that you can now reach inside and do all kinds of stuff. I call, well, it's not BS, it's just it didn't work for me. The most rocking I ever saw was you know, not enough to make any difference. And someone said, no, I use an engine lift. So I got underneath and found what appeared to be possibly a pivot point. And I jacked that part of the engine up by 2 or 3 inches. And all it did was just raise the whole engine. And by the way, that whole rocking thing supposedly doesn't work. I don't think it would work unless you remove what they call the dog bone engine brace or engine mount. And I did, just so you know, I removed this bolt. It's fairly easy. This doesn't look as strained as it appears. It didn't like pop loose or didn't snap back like a rubber band. It pretty much stayed in place. I removed the bolt. I attempted the rocking of the engine. That didn't work. So I just slid it right back in. It didn't require stretching or pushing the engine or anything. The engine pretty much settled in exactly the same spot it was before I removed the bolt. So, I guess we live and learn by each other's pain. Killed my back to be trying to do what I saw in all the other videos, and today I look forward to doing a relatively pain-free installation. I've already got the one most difficult one is done. I've got to do the other 2 now. So, best of luck to you. This is John.